Most of the sweet peas that we sowed together are now up, although I do have a few that haven't showed any at all. These were newer seeds, but a lot of them are older seeds, so they just might not be viable. I'll give them longer and see how they go. Today we're going to talk about covering these up for frosts and keeping them protected as the temperatures start to plummet now. This is part 3 of our grow along. If you haven't joined in yet, there is still plenty of time. So part 1 we looked at what we would need, and part 2 we looked at sowing them. So do join in if you can. It's been really very mild. So one of the things that these have done is actually shot up faster than we'd ideally want them. So it is a really good thing that the weather is getting colder and it's going to slow down their growth. What we're looking for is small, stocky growth rather than shooting up and being too warm and too mature too quickly. By having a colder winter, it's also really beneficial because it will give it a chance of actually branching out itself rather than us having to pinch them out to encourage side shoots later on in the season. Sweet peas are really quite hardy, but what they can't do is take a frost. So they'll be fine down to -5 if they're protected from a frost, but they won't actually be okay if that frost does penetrate and get to them. What we're going to do today is look at covering them with some fleece. I've got a low of 1 tonight, so it is likely to be a little bit of a frost. And I would say that these are fine in here, and I don't worry about doing anything more than popping the fleece on like we're doing now until we get down to around sort of -3. And at that point, I'll be putting the heater on in the tunnel. That's the easiest option for me. But you may find that you might want to bring them in the house and just keep them protected for that night or two. I will pop a link in the caption of the video that I did about different types of fleeces, how they work, and ones that are best to buy in my opinion. And then hopefully you'll have plenty there. If you have got the lighter weight ones, then we're just going to wrap them a little bit more. It is really good practice to be putting them on later on in the day and then removing them the next day. But if there is a consecutive frost for 2 to 3 nights, then I do tend to leave mine on. As long as they are still getting plenty of sunlight, then they should be absolutely fine. The other thing to consider with cold weather coming in is that we don't want to water any of the pots just before there is a chance of frost. A well watered pot is going to be more protected from frost than one that is very dry. But what we don't want to do is add that water just before the frost happens, and then it hasn't penetrated properly, and we're going to have a build up of ice, which could cause problems with the roots or rotting and things like that. So this one is a little bit drier than I would possibly like, although it could probably do with another couple of days before I'd be looking at watering them. These were the ones I was going to water from the bottom once they've got established. But I'll be leaving them now until the weather's a little bit warmer and probably got at least pluses of 2 during the evening, and these are Celsius, rather than actually doing them when there's a possibility of a frost. A frost can happen from anything from 3 Celsius and below, so we do want to be cautious from those temperatures. So I keep all my fleece cloth in an old ammunition military metal tin. It stops the mice getting in and chewing them. This is a larger one than I usually use, but as these are hanging, and they're hanging to keep away from the mice, all I'm going to be doing is wrapping these up and just preventing any actual frost managing to sit on the plants themselves. So the strings are really helpful here to make sure that it's held off of the foliage. On nights where we have a low of maybe -3, I still have these cloths on, probably with an additional layer, but these cloths will stay on even with the heater on. The only time they're not on is if the plants are taken inside the house. So I've just stolen a couple of pegs off of the washing line, and then I'm going to attach this up to the basket. And I also want to make sure that all this bottom part of the netting is brought up a little bit, just because I don't want the mice to have the opportunity to actually climb up. And then for this smaller basket of sweet peas, I'm going to do exactly the same. I am using the thinner fleece this time. It's ones that I have cut into smaller pieces, which are going to be more suited to this job. Because it is the thinner cloth, I'm going to be wrapping this in more than one layer. And once again, I'm just pegging this into place, and then that's all ready for tonight's possible frost. This can look like a little bit of overkill to cover these sweet peas like this, but we've put the money into buying the seeds, planting them up, the compost and everything, so the time and the money, I think it is worth making sure that they are completely safe and that we keep them as healthy as we can. If you don't have any of the frost covers and you just need something straight away, then an old sheet or blanket, a pillowcase, something like that can be used as well. Anything that is just going to keep it a little bit warmer, make a little microclimate, and also keep the frost actually away a little bit from those leaves as well.